A new investigation involving more than a dozen international law enforcement organizations has successfully identified hundreds of victims of sexual exploitation in what is being called one of the most successful operations of its kind. According to NBC News reporting, quote, in the 3-week surge known as Operation Renewed Hope, which began July 17th, investigators combing through sexually graphic internet material involving children, much of it on the dark web and some of it decades old, made probable identifications of 311 child victims and confirmed the rescue of several victims from active abuse. Investigators credit facial recognition and artificial intelligence technology for opening fresh leads into these cases. Joining me now is Rob D'Amico, former member of the FBI hostage rescue team and the founder of Sierra One Consulting. Rob, this is fantastic news, and this operation was unique due to all of these international agencies coming together in order to gather leads. But what goes into an operation of this grand scale?
These get huge. So when you're looking at ops that are this big and trying to coordinate all the different law enforcement agencies, because as soon as you start arresting some of these people, it'll get out. It'll get out across the dark web, and then they'll start to hide, they'll start to delete, and they'll start to really cover their tracks because they know we're onto them. So coordinating that to happen at the same time across the world is really difficult.
Rob, let's talk about how facial recognition and artificial intelligence technology was used in this particular instance. Can you kind of explain to our viewers how that was deployed and whether or not it's promising that maybe some more cold cases could be reopened and solved?
Yeah, you're starting to see technology that actually has been used across the intelligence community and the spying community to now do criminal cases, because when it's expensive to develop, and then you want to keep it secret because you don't want to let these other countries know you have it. But as it gets more common, then it comes over to the criminal side, which you can start using it because it's going to show up in court. So as facial recognition goes across and artificial intelligence, the data sets out there of the amount of information they can search and then spot. So you can have one face that you recognize, and then AI can be looking across all these other videos and say, where else did we see it? And then you can start tagging things like location. They talk about an article about hearing bird sounds and identifying, well, what kind of bird is that and where is it located? And then you can send that lead to the country that may have that bird. Those things were used before, but it was very covert on the side. And now you're starting to see it on the criminal side.
In last week as well, Rob, in a separate operation named Operation Cross Country, the FBI found dozens of sex trafficking victims and more than 100 suspects in a 2-week-long sweep. How prevalent is child sexual exploitation and human trafficking in our United States?
It actually is. So Operation Cross Country started, I think, in 2008. It's been running a long time. There's been over almost 7,000 victims recovered from those operations. They do it yearly. And that's just a snapshot of what's going on because it's everywhere. You hear about it at big events, but you really actually start seeing it across the entire country. And what's really dangerous, some of the victims don't even identify as victims. They see themselves better than what they came from. And they get a Stockholm syndrome and they get manipulated into thinking they have a better life. So it's a very tough one, but it's very important.
In an operation like Operation Renewed Hope, authorities are locating now adults who were abused as children. How important has it been for the provision of resources and things like counseling to those victims in situations like this?
It's huge. I remember when I first joined the FBI, we had maybe 4 or 5 people in our victims unit. Victims is now an entire division because what we have is a responsibility to provide counseling to the victims of federal crimes. So it goes back into if you can't help the victim, again, they fall back into it. I know one agent that's recovered a girl 6 times from the same type of things. But you have to get them in counseling. You have to really start understanding what they need. You have to the interviewing and stuff, and that goes across all the federal agencies. So helping them after is really big, and it takes a lot of resources, though.
You know, Rob, earlier this week, Australian police announcing 19 men arrested on charges of sharing child abuse material online and 13 children rescued from further harm. But they worked in a joint operation with the FBI. How critical is international cooperation in the pursuit of offenders, as well as helping recover and save victims?
The international side is huge. And all these agencies that have these resources work together hand in hand. We first started getting into international law enforcement, I think, with organized crime, but everyone hides between borders. So they know that if they're doing things that happen on a server in the US and in Australia, they know the rules just as well as we do, and they try to play by them. So, I mean, phone calls, these police officers go to conferences all the time together. They know each other by name, and they can just pick up a phone and say, hey, I think this one's in your area, and here's the intel that I'm getting, and then they can start running down their leads. It's unbelievable what we can do because we have to be better than them.
Rob D'Amico, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insight and for explaining everything. Thank you so much.